As the United Kingdom begins administering the first shots of the COVID-19 vaccine this week, the English and Welsh Bishops' Conference tells the Catholic faithful they can receive the AstraZeneca vaccine without sin, even though the vaccine was developed from cell lines originating from the cells of an unborn child who was aborted in 1983. The bishops cited church understanding that a person in good conscience and for grave reason may receive a vaccine sourced in this way, provided there's sufficient moral distance between the present administration of the vaccine and the original wrongful action. The chair of the bishop's social justice department stated, quote, "In the COVID-19 pandemic, we judge that this grave reason exists and that one does not sin by receiving the vaccine." The pro-life research group, the Charlotte Lozier Institute, has published a new chart detailing whether the 8 leading COVID-19 vaccine candidates supported by Operation Warp Speed are produced or tested using cells derived from abortions. Analysis revealed most vaccine candidates did not use abortion-derived cell lines in their production. Several used abortion-derived cell lines in laboratory testing, or their use in testing could not be determined. Dr. Prentice and Dr. Sandra Lee, you two are behind this updated vaccine chart. Which vaccines were determined to be the most ethical in your eyes? Dr. Sandra Lee.
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, this chart that we now provide on our website, the goal is that it provides the most accurate and updated information so that people can make a very well-informed decision as these vaccines become available. So as you mentioned, the great news is that the majority of them in Operation Warp Speed do not use fetal cell lines in the production. That is the way that they are made, what is going to actually be injected into the individual. And so we know actually in 75% of them, so 6 out of the 10 do not use fetal cell lines in production. When we look carefully at these and look at which ones those are, we know that for 3 of them, they are using a newer method or approach that doesn't use any cells at all in making these vaccines. And these include the Pfizer and the Moderna mRNA vaccine and the Inovio DNA vaccine. And then the other 3 use an alternative cell lines, such as insect cell lines or animal cell lines, in order to produce their vaccine. And these include Novavax, Merck, and the Sanofi vaccines. And so this is incredibly positive and encouraging news that we have now, looks like 6 leading vaccines in Operation Warp Speed that are using alternative methods that do not rely on fetal cell lines for production.
Which one is the most concerning to you, Dr. Sandra Lee?
Well, when we look carefully at this, there are 2, and one of them you mentioned, which is the AstraZeneca vaccine, as well as the Johnson & Johnson, that do use fetal cell lines to produce or make their vaccine. And this is controversial. And while there's no ongoing destruction of babies in order to make these vaccines, the connection still exists. We do know that these cell lines were derived from a past abortion. And so this really puts Americans then in a difficult position when we could look at these 2 vaccines, because Americans are then faced with, as they face these vaccinations, then they are looking at possibly going against their own moral stance when it comes to abortion.
Dr. Prentice, even though Charlotte Lozier and other Catholic bioethicists have deemed Pfizer and Moderna vaccines as ethical, there seems to be confusion and concerns surrounding the testing of the vaccines. Can you address those concerns about fetal cell lines, especially when it comes to our Catholic understanding of it?
Certainly. Let's first deal with production. As Dr. Sandra Lee has talked about, this involves how the vaccine is actually made. Are there any cell lines, fetal cell lines of these controversial types that are used? Are there other types of cells, or any cells at all? Was there any contact with those fetal cell lines as it was being produced that might even have left trace components behind? Bottom line is, production deals with what is going to go into my arm as a vaccine recipient. Testing, we should think about that as quality control. These are confirmatory tests on the finished product. Things like vaccinating mice and then testing whether antibodies are being produced by those mice, actually vaccinating cells in the lab to see whether the vaccine product, the actual protein that they're after, is being produced within the cells. Now, the testing does not directly connected to that product that goes into the recipient. So it's another level removed, but because the company and their collaborators may have used those abortion-derived cell lines in the testing, there is still a matter of concern here. And it also gives us an opportunity, though, to encourage these vaccine producers to use licit cell lines and licit methods.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Prentice, if Xavier Becerra is confirmed HHS Secretary, do you have concerns about the ethics on COVID vaccine research and development moving forward?
There are big concerns here. Under President Trump and Secretary Azar, great advances have been made in the pro-life cause, but a Secretary Becerra will almost certainly turn back this to a culture of death, not just in terms of vaccine ethics, but fetal tissue research, trafficking in aborted baby body parts, embryo research, and abortion.
Well, we are so grateful for your research, both of you. Thank you. For our viewers, you can find more information on the vaccines by going to lozierinstitute.org. Doctors David Prentice and Tara Sandra Lee from the Charlotte Lozier Institute, thank you both.
Thank you so much.